What's a very American problem that Americans don't realize isn't normal in other countries? Story 1: that you can lose your job without warning, no notice period where you can get paid while looking for something else, just getting thrown out of a workplace you've been at for years, with your belongings, and that this can lead to losing your right to proper health care because of insurance. Basically, no rights and no safety net. Only the rich seem to get severance packages. Story 2: getting time off. 2 weeks here feels like a lot. You work a bunch to get some more time off after X number of years. Other countries can get a month off no issue, it seems like. Story 3: extremely intrusive HOAs, homeowner associations. Just the idea of not being free to do as I please on my own property within reason seems ridiculous to me. Story 4: active shooter drills for kids in school, bulletproof backpacks. Edit: for all the people that don't believe me, hey race 1 for your tender-aged daughter. Edit 2: list of US school shootings prior to 2000. My first link to a school shooting G was the song I Don't Like Mondays, which relates to the shooting January 1979, that's 45 years ago. Yet there's records going G back to 1764, granted it has been on increase these last few decades. There have been 7 school shootings this year that resulted in injuries or deaths, according to an Education Week analysis. There have been 228 such shootings since 2018. From January 1, 2009 to May 21, 2018, there have been 288 school shootings in the U.S. The next nearest is Mexico at 8, Pakistan at 4. Pakistan has 275 million. Nigeria has 227 million people and 4 school shootings. People, the U.S. has 340 million people and 288 school shootings in the same period. Story 5: there is one thing about America that I as outsider looking in can't not grasp. Evangelical Christians, and especially TV evangelist. Is it just not exploitation? Story 6: as a non-American, I see many outraged discussions about public bathrooms, around the overly popular trans debate. In Italy, the outside door of some public bathrooms is kept open, and you wouldn't violate anyone's privacy walking in the wrong one. Why? Because each stall is a room with a brick wall and a door around it, down to the floor, as it ought to be. The fact that you have no privacy with people of the same gender in the US, not even the option of it, is absolutely nuts. Story 7: pretty much the entire American experience would be a dystopia anywhere else. No universal healthcare, mass shootings as background noise, toddlers dying from unsecured guns, and people going bankrupt because they got sick. A former president led an insurrection, and received felonies for serious crimes, and instead of facing justice, he was re-elected. Now he's pardoning the rioters, calling them patriots, and rewriting history in real time. We have entire states banning history, criminalizing teachers, and letting billionaires rewrite policy. Our cops have military gear, our prisons are privatized, our citizens worship oligarchs, and half the country thinks this is freedom. The real crisis is that half the country doesn't even know right from wrong or what's true anymore. They are so hollowed out by propaganda they can't recognize democracy dying, even as they proudly help kill it. We are collapsing, and they are cheering it on. Story 8: being required to pay a fortune to be in someone else's wedding party. Bridesmaids being forced to buy a dress of the bride's choosing and pay for bachelorette vacations and bridal showers and gifts. In other nations, paying for the bridesmaids is a wedding cost for the couple and their families. Bridesmaids originally being a display of wealth. You also give gifts to the bridesmaids to thank them for their support, not the other way around. Story 9: ambulance costs. Was in Germany with food poisoning, drove myself to the ER, they were shook when I told them I did, they then quietly told me you don't pay for ambulances there. Story 10: the fact Americans act like vacation time, healthcare, education, safety, and work-life balance are luxuries that can't possibly be afforded by society goes to show how abused and brainwashed they are. If Americans could travel and see how other countries operate, they'd come back and demand better treatment, which is why the oligarchs keep us poor. Story 11: entitlement, and this thing that they think America is the whole world, everyone else doesn't matter. I remember someone asked me what my plans are for a 4th of July. I was confused because it was American Celebration Day. He thought everyone in the world celebrate it. Don't know what to blame. Complete lack of logic or horrible education system. Story 12: I feel like religion, and particularly Christianity in America, is a uniquely American issue. American evangelical Christianity is basically antithetical to the purported values of Christianity as practiced in other places. Americans seem particularly inclined to extol virtue of prosperity, to demonize the poor and downtrodden. To be rich is to be righteous. American religion is hostile, cruel, and cult-like. It's weaponized. Story 13: playing a crucial role in the takedown of a brutal dictator who became synonymous with the word evil, then 80 years later enthusiastically supporting a leader who is doing the exact same things that dictator did to get into power. Story 14: being so brainwashed into hypercapitalism that all welfare is considered evil. Socialism, taxes, socialism, food stamps, socialism, a kindergarten, socialism, a shelter for the homeless, socialism. Story 15: being desensitized to mass shootings. T seems to happen every other week, and all the other stuff going on, it doesn't even faze us. I can't imagine that's a thing in any other similar country. Story 16: America is the only place I've been where a lot of people expect special treatment and flex their entitlement, Haven't been everywhere, but I don't see it much elsewhere. Story 17 Legal open corruption pronounced lobbying in the USA, pledge of allegiance to a flag in schools, mass shootings, also in schools, guns everywhere, child marriage, women's rights down the drain. Banning abortions and life-saving procedures, thus actively killing women, while simultaneously refusing to acknowledge children's basic needs and see that they're met, weddings that cost the price of a house, and guests being expected to pay for them, no usable trains, not walkable cities, mandatory car to go anywhere, unaffordable education. Private prisons, medical bankruptcies, cult leaders of TV, police shooting colored people on a regular basis and getting away with it, cult leaders in the White House, no workers' rights, peanut butter sandwiches, drinking soda all day, stupid unit system, the general lack of understanding of anything scientific or humane, and the insane pride and arrogance of the uneducated, the widespread hypocrisy, Christians hating on everyone and hoping to get the good old lynching days back, eating microwaved on a daily basis. The list could go on. The USA is a dystopian nightmare come true. Story 18 The big one is school shootings. It's extremely weird that Americans have such a high chance that their kids won't return home from school. I realize that it's still relatively low, but compared to the majority of the planet, it's astronomically large. Story 19 First past the post-voting simple majority. Apparently it varies by state in the USA, but it is widely used. Most of the world does not use that system because it leaves voters with limited choice. For example, Australia uses a single transferable vote ranked voting in the House of Representatives and proportional representation, also ranked in the Senate. Story 20 Medical debt, school shootings, food deserts, student loan debt, credit rating, getting elected with a minority of votes, having no alternative to car mobility, right-wing proto-fascist media echo chambers. Story 21 12 weeks of maternity leave is considered generous, and only certain companies offer it, and I can't believe that some parents without any sort of paid leave have to go back to work a few days after their baby is born. We have the option of 12 or 18 months of maternity leave here in Canada. Story 22 How ignorant and uneducated many Americans are, in general, and in their often demonstrated inability to believe the rest of the world is actually real. Story 23 Constantly worry, fear and stress. It's for everything, not being productive enough, not being a good enough parent, your kid falling behind or getting kidnapped, your status of your relationship, your weight and fitness. Meanwhile, living in the Netherlands, I met a lot of people from around the world and everyone is much more chill about those things. No one seems chronically stressed that need to cope with massive amount of alcohol, drugs, or toxic positivity or compulsive self-care. Americans work too hard and consume too much outrage. They should care less and become more flexible. Bad things won't happen just because you didn't stress yourself out about the what-ifs. Story 24 Guns. Say it loud and clear. We finally have an actual dictatorship happening and all of our gun owners are welcoming it with open arms. What was the point of those school shootings, those murders, those terrorists? All for you to save your guns for the side which wants everyone to live on equal footing. Thoughts and prayers go to thee and come straight back out if your mouth that at least represents the loop of gun violence and gun forgiveness that I see in America. Story 25 Maternity leave. I work for a global company. The team I'm in charge of has people from Hungary, Turkey, UK, US and Japan. My US team members have maternity leave for 8 weeks and anything else after falls under FMLA. That's what the company gives. And there is no government-mandated maternity leave. My Japanese associate had a year off mandated by the government. We have a member on our EU team, my sister team, who has a 3-year maternity leave. She might only take 2 though, as she doesn't want to be gone too long. My wife would have killed to have a year off when she gave birth to our kids. Story 26 Golf courses. Not only do they take a lot of space and water, but there is a study that says that people who live around them are around 129 more likely to develop Parkinson's. Story 27 Spending so much money on healthcare and still not everyone being covered. Like seriously, it's free elsewhere and the taxes that pay for it are way less than the premiums and copays here. Story 28 Healthcare system is embarrassingly bad. In normal developed countries, you go to a building or building complex built as a hospital and get everything you need done there. Here in the US, your PCP refers you to another location usually, then you need a new appointment, which means you need to take off from work again. I needed to look for a dermatologist the other week. I found one with good review and went, you would expect it to be part of a hospital complex, but nope. It's inside a shopping plaza and the building looks like it could have been a bagel shop or something. Eye clinics are also weird. Back in my home country, there are public hospitals dedicated just for eye health. Here, you have eye clinics inside Walmart or LensCrafters. Eye clinics inside LensCrafters feel as if they are a front for luring people to shop from LensCrafters. I get my eye exam done and next thing I see is a salesperson approaching me to sell a frame. Makes sense within the boundaries of capitalism because healthcare is one of the services that absolutely everyone would need eventually, so it is designed as service rather than basic human right. Story 29 The whole gun ownership thing. I've seen a lot of Americans say they need guns for their own safety and protection. Thing is, rest of the world goes by perfectly fine without needing guns because no one else around me has a gun. Story 30 USA is actually a developmental country. In many aspects they shoot each other. They have to pay for healthcare. Their president is a narcissistic autocrat. They have to pay for attending universities. Bad to non-existing train infrastructure. weird rules on sick days never totally understand that, because it's probably against human rights. Story 31 The whole circumcision thing. Where I'm from it's not really common practice. I've never actually heard of or seen a guy my age who was. Now I know because nothing's sacred apparently that my dad, his friend, and my uncle are, but they were born in a Jewish hospital and apparently it was not so common in other hospitals in the 70s. Story 32 Having to borrow money to build up some number credit score that allows you to borrow more money later on. In my country, the Netherlands, it is best for your future borrowing to borrow other money. Story 33 American celebrity obsession paying exorbitant fees to see any shows watching celebrity interviews that are a sideshow while pitching their own movie concerts that start at 500 and are an hour and 20 minutes listening to celebrity influence on products they know absolutely nothing about. Limited talent in past 2 decades in horror writing genre fashion choices literally in gutter circus like beauty products celeb endorsement that are a small car payment example. Eyeshadow palette and hydration cream 200 or a bottle of perfume 1 ounce WA celeb endorsement 150 and higher a bottle sports events ridiculous outrageous prices and parking food to any of these events is exorbitant as well. Story 34 Scratch off, sports gambling and Ozempic commercials, all of which prey on humans. US food companies let's make tons of money by adding preservatives and processed foods to contribute to obesity. US pharma let's make tons of money by selling a drug that combats obesity. Story 35 School lunch debt. In a sane country we would just say the cost to feed every kid is trivial, let's just get rid of any means testing and offer it to everyone who wants it. But of course we're hyper-concerned about poor people getting the tiniest bit of help that they don't deserve, while we wave away huge subsidies to rich people as just normal and natural. Story 36 School shootings and gun violence in general. Added to that the fact that there are people that seem to really believe that adding even more guns to the mix is going to solve it. Story 37 Paying for an ambulance not having access to free healthcare absurd prices for medications and simple treatments 2 weeks vacation a year no maternity leave gun violence, especially in schools and public spaces paying for college applications, not to study there, just to apply for a chance of studying their tipping culture absurd amount of laws defending corporate greed while denying basic human rights homeowner associations controlling an entire neighborhood like they own every house. In the area squatters rights no walkable cities while gas prices are crazy high tax value not being included in the shown price of a product. Story 38 Obesity and lack of prioritizing healthy living and profits instead. For example, look at the typical American meal. It's simply loaded, nutrition, poor garbage, let alone before the fast food. Where I grew up outside LFUS from the younger age, if you could not do bare minimum physical requirements, you basically became untouchable as kid and face its own version of social desiamtio. Then to the normal food, everything was naturally made by hands. Typical fast food was nothing like US drive-thru. Gyms and physical activity places was free of charge or was basically cost pennies to attend. The result, US have the workforce that is in relatively bad physical shape for working conditions and being morbidly obese is the norm, delegating the burden on the rest of society at their own volition. Story 39 Paying to see a doctor. Paying for any healthcare at all, the price at the checkout being different from the price of the items, doing your taxes, crossing the road being illegal. Story 40 No paid maternity leave. It's shocking how little time off new mothers have before they have to go back to work, and it's unpaid. My friend worked remotely at a company that had Americans and they were pissed when they learned their Canadian colleagues could take a year off and it was a paid leave. Only they got angry at the company and not at their own government. Their HR had to explain to them that it's the law in other countries. Story 41 Jesus. I didn't even get paid time off when I gave birth to my children BC. I worked for a small company. In America, companies with less than 50 employees are exempt from FMLA. Story 42 Not having over 3 weeks annual leave mandated by law. No reliable public transport outside major cities, not being able to walk to the shops, not going bankrupt when serious medical problems hit, not having to learn duck and cover at school, no government safety net if something goes wrong. Story 43 The concept of news differs a lot. In Central Europe, millions still watch public news broadcasts daily in a neutral, fact-driven format, and with a clear line between reporting and commentary. In the US, news is often personality and opinion-driven, fast-paced, and heavily commercialized. Story 44 I think we all, those outside of the US that is, know of the major problem shootings, medical costs, public transport tech, but the one that really shocked me was the food deserts. We had an American English teacher one year and she told us that some parts of even cities don't have easy-ish access to a normal food shop. Story 45 Pushing a whole baby out of your body, then returning to work a few weeks later as if nothing happened and it doesn't take years for your body and mental health to recover. Story 46 Can't leave your job because it provides healthcare for your family, not being able to rise in your position because you'll lose your good coverage. Story 47 Without a shadow of a doubt the cost of medical procedures. It's free in the UK and boy does it make a difference when you've got to deal with cancer. What a cruel trick when you have to worry about how you and your family are going to pay for something that you could die of. Story 48 Not having the Energetamita knowledge to cook nutritious meals every day, living on processed and convenience foods without even questioning the ingredients. Story 49 proclaiming to be free, but in reality being subservient to a system where your health and wealth are entirely dependent on the whims of your employer. Story 50 male genital mutilation. Assaulting half your baby boys is insane to me. The thought that one's own country is the best at everything, and the mental gymnastics to explain it. The USA has forgotten that if you can't look at others and learn, you're destined to get stuck in a less than favorable status quo. Story 51 our healthcare system. My friends in Canada, Mexico, and Europe are shocked by how much it costs here with and without insurance. I have a friend with dual citizenship US and UK, she broke her arm roller skating. After going to ER and learning she would need surgery, she found it cheaper to book a last-minute flight to London and get her surgery there than in the US. Story 52 the balance of the political spectrum in America is not the same as most other Western countries. Like I think that is obvious to Americans now, but this has pretty much always been the case in the 40 years I've been alive. Obama would have been a borderline progressive conservative in a lot of Western countries. Story 53 to give an answer that's not related to policy tornadoes. They do occur in other parts of the world, but not to the frequency of the US. Heck, we have multiple movies that feature tornadoes as a plot point. Story 54 undrinkable tap water. In other countries where this happen, they know it's a problem and would solve it if they had the money. You guys have all the money in the world and still have crappy water infrastructure. Story 55 medical bankruptcy tipping culture no guaranteed paid parental leave sky-high college tuition mass shootings as a routine reality employer-based health insurance two-party political system limited public transit options exorbitant prescription drug prices incarceration rate. Story 56 being expected to raise kids alone. Huge lack of village mentality here. Raising kids is already so hard and without familial help is even harder and lonely. Hate this. Story 57 seeing a few comments implying Americans aren't aware of their own problems and are too stupid to realize the obvious dystopia and exploitation all around us. The issue is not awareness, it's lack of agency. The powers to change corrupt systems like healthcare private prisons are simply not in the people's hands. Leaving the country has its own baggage saying goodbye to everyone you know who can't get out, leaving behind most material possessions, possibly having to learn a new language, definitely having embarrassing moments learning a different culture. Most are of the mentality to go down with the ship as it's sinking because they have to. Story 58 besides what a lot of people already mentioned, having a quota for sick days that you can also use as vacations is wild to me, and donating sick days to other people. Story 59 PTO seems so hard to get there. In the UK, I can get plenty of annual leave, sick leave, special leave. I feel so sorry for the Americans who can't take proper time off, especially when they are sick. Story 60 the extreme levels of political alignment exhibited by the general public. You're either Democrat or Republican, and it defines pretty much your entire identity, to the extent where you start criticizing people you've never even spoken to previously for their beliefs. Like, you'll be watching a YouTube video or reading something on Reddit, and there is always a comment along the lines of typical racist Republican or woke liberal. They don't even know if they're American, and the insane levels ostracization that goes along with it. Disapprove of gay marriage? Well, you better not be a Democrat. Think gun violence is a problem? Well, no Republican is going to want to talk to you, which are just two of many points when it comes to deciding who to vote for. It really seems like there are no middle ground Americans, at least to us in the rest of the world. Story 61 the sheer amount of adverts. I've never seen TV like it. There's an extra set of adverts in between the normal amount of adverts I'm used to. For an hour-long show, I'd expect 2 or 3 advert breaks, not to mention what the adverts are for, asking people if they have symptoms, then recommending a prescription-only drug. Story 62 the obsession with their own country. Most people love the country they're from but rarely mention them. Americans obsess over it, all the time rambling on about America, how their problems are the biggest, the victories are the greatest, etc. The way they talk about states they may as well be countries by comparison to how the rest of the world speaks of their own countries. Social media is a great example of this. Americans regularly post about this or that going on in places like Michigan or Iowa with no context about what those places even are as if the rest of the world just knows. Or they just talk about a governor or senator or whatever in the same way, as if everyone knows who they are. They're nobody to the rest of the world and Americans don't realize that. Story 63 going bankrupt over healthcare, no required paid time off, at-will employment, lack of efficient public transportation, chronic obesity, especially kids being obese. Story 64 having to calculate tips everywhere I go. Visited Europe last summer and it was so refreshing to just pay the price on the menu. Here I am pulling out my phone to calculate 20 after every meal like it's a math test. Story 65 worrying about going bankrupt if you get sick. I was at an ER in the US and almost everyone who came in had to provide their credit card because they either didn't have insurance or it wasn't clear if insurance would cover everything. Don't know about all countries but that is completely unheard of in my country. In Canada you hand over your government health card and that's it. Story 66 there is nothing wrong with being proud of your country, no matter where you're from. Many Americans aren't content with that, though. They have to run down and insult everywhere and everyone else, often despite total ignorance of who and where they are insulting. The pained look on the faces of those being insulted isn't because a blow has landed home, it's because of embarrassment listening to the self-righteous, self-aggrandizing, ill-informed being spewed by that particular type of American and mortification at the revealing of the massive insecurity it so obviously takes to be like that. It's not a uniquely American trait, but it is more prevalent and more strident, and not only online. Story 67. The real possibility of being shot by someone, or even then someone has a gun near you. I am 51 living in Argentina, and the last time I saw a loaded gun pointed at something was a .22 carbine when I was 17 and wanted to learn how to shoot in a shooting range, under expert supervisor, after some questioning from the local authorities. And things have got really harder for people wanting to own a gun since then. Story 68. Subscribing to a collection of political viewpoints that have little to nothing to do with each other because your party is one of only two that can be elected, being thrown out of your home for not believing in God and Jesus Trump's holiness, being confused that the Pope is Catholic and against both homosexuality and idolatry, just Puritans in general, not being able to trust a cop, ever. Story 69. School shootings, they happen, just not to that frequency. Also dying because you can't afford medical care and dying even if you can afford it because you're a pregnant woman with a non-viable pregnancy they refuse to treat. Story 70. Almost everything, expensive healthcare, expensive insurances, too many too big cars, too much nazism fascism, too less education compared to other developed countries, goon cops, always looking to destroy another country. Story 71. Cops who will just shoot wildly with no provocation in any situation and getting away with it scot-free. When it's at the point that I've heard multiple stories out of the states of cops breaking into the wrong home and shooting innocent people in their beds, it really seems like if you live in America there's literally nothing you can do to avoid being murdered by the state if its agents decide on a whim that you should die, which is terrifying.